Public Television, Channel 56.
This presentation is made possible by CompuWare, the leader in IT value. This program is also made possible by Dow and by contributions to a PBS station by viewers like you. Thank you. Cyrano the Opera was over 8 years in the making and tells celebrated playwright Edmond Rostand's compelling story of a larger-than-life poet swordsman cursed with a larger-than-life nose. The classic tale of a swashbuckling adventure and unrequited love has been told many times on stage and in films.
Had enough yet?
Cyrano the Opera came from a collaboration between longtime friends, former General Director of the Montreal Opera, Bernard Uzan, and General Director of the Michigan Opera Theater, David DiChiera.
And I was always been fascinated by the story of Cyrano. And I wanted to do something about it, so I talked to David DiChiera, who was an old friend, since I've been coming to Detroit since 1982 to direct productions. And I said, you know, I think you should write an opera, because I heard some of the music he had composed before and I loved it. And he said, yeah, but I need to find a subject. I have a subject. The subject is Cyrano. And that's how it started.
I said, well, you know, it's a very famous play. I'm not sure, you know, I could do it justice. And he said, well, let me take you through this play. It was sheer poetry. And so, you know, at that time, Bernard was the general director of the Montreal Opera, and he wanted very much for me to do it, and so we agreed on it. I played it, and he seemed very excited about it, so that gave me a bit of self-confidence that perhaps maybe that this was a play that I could provide some kind of musical depth and take it somewhat beyond what the words are.
But the process would be a long one. Dr. DiChiera is one of only 2 active composers in North America who also happen to hold the title of Opera Company General Director.
Normally, composers don't take, almost 7 years to write an opera, but I'm not a full-time composer. I run opera companies. So this has been a kind of a, you know, the kind of thing I would do late at night or very early in the morning before I run off to a first meeting.
So with the collaboration between the librettist and the composer well underway, the next step would be to decide where Cyrano would have its world premiere. To many, the Detroit Opera House might seem like a natural decision, but not for the general director and composer.
Originally, I did not want to do the world premiere in Detroit. It felt uncomfortable for me, you know? It felt like, okay, so he runs the opera company, and so he's written an opera, and now he's going to see to it that he produces it, you know?
But those involved with the Michigan Opera Theater had different ideas.
When I first became chairman, I came into David's office and I saw the sheet of music on his piano, and I said, what's that? He said, well, I'm writing an opera. I said, really? He'd been working on it for years. I said, are you going to perform it here? And he said, no, we're not going to perform it here. We're going to perform it in Miami. And I said, what? You've got to perform it here. And then for the next year or so, I argued with him because he was reluctant to have it performed here when he's the maestro and this is his house. And it would look like he was doing his own thing. And I said, well, that's bad thinking. We're going to perform it here.
One of the first challenges in staging a new opera is locating funding. Co-producing an opera with companies in other cities is a creative way to make staging an original production more affordable. And it's an idea that had worked in the past for Detroit in staging Margaret Garner, the opera based on the Toni Morrison novel, Beloved.
Doing a co-production allows us to really do productions on a bigger scale than we could afford otherwise. In this kind of a case, though, with a world premiere or a new opera, I think it's really important that there be a commitment up front of multiple companies so work doesn't just get performed once and then sort of die out. This guarantees that 3 different communities, 3 different cities are going to hear this work at least and expose it to many, many more people.
I mean, thinking of the extended life of this, you're going to have a standard full, everything together for renting.
That would go with it. That would be the ideal.
David and I had been looking for pieces to do together for many years. The first one, of course, was Margaret Garner. And just before the Margaret Garner performances in Cincinnati last summer, David called me and said, you know, I've been working on an opera based on Cyrano, and I'd love to play that through for you. Would you mind? And we got to the first little segment that Christian sings, and I said, my God, David, what have you been doing all these years? You've been holding back on us. I said, any of us can be a general director, but not many of them. Who else can write like this with this beautiful melodic gift? I was just really thrilled, and it just got better and better. And so I said, I'm on board, yes, let's do it.
With 2 additional opera companies on board, the fundraising for Detroit's premiere began.
Well, the development plan for Cyrano is a $2 million goal for this project. And we started out with going to our board of directors and board of trustees. And then what you do is you branch out and try to bring more people in to the project to buy into it. So David and I decided that the best way to do it would be to do intimate parlor meetings to expose as many people as possible to this wonderful, wonderful opera.
The classically French tale of Cyrano required designs that captured the romanticism and emotions of the story. Noted scenic and costume designer John Pascoe is brought on board.
So I tried to focus on creating a visual world that would reflect the romance of the story and the period in which it's originally set. And it's for me, Cyrano is one of the stories that you cannot update because it's a story about the power of the word.
Telling that story on a 3-dimensional scale took the work of hundreds of skilled craftspeople and thousands of hours of work. The experts at Ravenswood Studio in Chicago constructed sets for the production.
With any opera, opera scenery is very big. A lot of the challenges revolve around how to get it to move around the stage and go together and be engineered in a way that it's safe and goes together quickly. So there's a lot more work involved in the backside of the scenery that most people don't see as opposed to the scenery part of it that is seen.
Grand opera is that. It's grand. The scenery is huge. One of the things that I will have to deal with as I'm looking at this and seeing the scenery built and how big it actually is how many crew members it's going to take to put together, how many crew it's going to take to move during the performance itself, and hope that the guesses we made a year ago pan out to be somewhat near reality. It's a lot of scenery. Michigan Opera Theater is the lead company, which means that we get the joy of creating it and the creative process and the input on it. The other companies help financially support it. They also have a stake then in that production. They can put it on without a rental fee at their theater. But it creates a responsibility for me to make sure, as I said, that it fits in their spaces as well as my space. And Philadelphia has a beautiful old theater, but a much smaller storage space than we do in Detroit. I have much less concern. Miami has a brand new, very large space. So they're going to fit. If it fits in my space, it'll fit in their space without a problem.
Costumes also help set the visual world of Cyrano.
Designing costumes is really about visualizing people. What you need to think about is to just allow yourself to know who these people are. And designing is very, very similar to the kind of experience that most of us have, though not all I understand, but most of us have. If I say a word to you, if I say grandmother, probably you now have an image of grandmother in your mind. What the designer's job consists of is to be able to realize the image that one has in one's head when whatever that word is that's spoken.
Costume production happens at the Michigan Opera Theater. It's a massive first-time commission for the costume studio.
So for Cyrano, we will be building 167 costumes using over 200 fabrics, brocades, taffetas, satins, colors, shades, embroidered, you name it, and then trims on top of all of that. The fabric came from Haberman Fabrics, which is my favorite source for fabrics in the local area. And over the course of time, we've developed a fabulous working relationship with the Habermans. And for this particular project, in celebration of their 50th anniversary, they're donating all the fabric that we're using to the project as an anniversary gift to Detroit. Cyrano has taken, on average, 10 people working full-time, approximately 8 months of 40 hours a week worth of work, and we're still going strong. As we get closer to the opening of Cyrano, we're moving up into the world of fittings. We have 96 fittings to do in a couple of weeks. And in the fittings, it's not just about making sure the costume fits well and looks good in our eyes. It's making sure that the performer feels good and looks good and that there's nothing that will impede their performance.
And an artist doesn't feel well unless they feel well in their costume. It even goes beyond how things look. You're supporting this character, the costume, of course, is, and it's very much a part of the essence of the character in the show, too, that is at stake.
The challenge of taking a score from a single piano to full orchestration fell to Mark Flint.
Doing an orchestration, even from a physical point of view, writing, all of the notes for every instrument is huge. The way I worked with Mark was I would say to him, okay, here I hear this in strings. Maybe this is an oboe solo, and then we would go back and forth with that. Mark was almost kind of like my alter ego in writing this orchestration, and then he would send it back to me and I'd go through it, and we'd make adjustments and so forth, but not a lot because he knew instinctively what my music was saying. And
more than a year before the world premiere, and before the principal singers had been selected, a workshop was held to perform the opera for the very first time.
Well, very often in a workshop, one of the things that you're looking to see is, how heavy is the orchestra and whether the singers that you're thinking about using in the production are going to be able to carry out over the orchestra. So you're kind of looking at bringing all of the elements together in a workshop that if you're just looking at it on the page of music, you're not hearing it, you're not hearing all the layers of the sound and so forth. So you're kind of wanting to see how it sits in voices, how it sits with the orchestra, and whether the singers, and this is a big score. It's a big orchestra and a big sound, so you really need singers who really can kind of get out over the orchestra.
To hear it the first time yesterday with the singers and the orchestra was not a surprise. Honestly, not a surprise. I knew it will work. I had heard the music before with the orchestra last week, with other singers, and I know the piece so well, so I was able to, in my mind, put them together without hearing them.
The workshop brought Cyrano to life and helped set the bar for the casting search.
Spain is not sung in this country. I think we're going to have to try to fly him in so we can hear him in the opera house.
Okay.
Well, I have to tell you, casting for me was the most challenging thing that I faced. I thought writing the opera was going to be really difficult. It took a long time, but I did it. But then when I was faced with casting, it gave me the most kind of anxiety. I mean, the real challenge with casting is that I like to say that one always looks for a package. A package, for me, is a package is that somebody who looks right, somebody who vocally can really encompass the role, can express it, and somebody who has the personality. She would be ideal for that. So she should get the music because there's some very low notes in it, and I don't know whether she has those notes, so we've got to find that out first. in the world of opera, because sometimes you find wonderful voices without the visuals and so forth. Roxanne is so beautiful, of course. So hard not to be in love with her. Roxanne, for me, in many ways, is the only role, the only character that develops in the opera. She starts out as a rather kind of fickle, kind of selfish, what they called at that time a précieuse, somebody who just loved beautiful things and beauty and so forth. Well, Leah Partridge is not only one of the most beautiful sopranos in the opera world today, but it's a voice that completely mirrors my music. It's lyric and beautiful, and she has high notes to burn, and she's just an ideal package, and she's going to bring Roxanne to life on the stage.
Roxanne is a very important character, and what's going to be so fun about playing her is her evolution as a person, her youngness at the beginning, and her usefulness that, you know, everything is so open, and she's kind of shallow in a way, in a good way, in a young way. And by the end of the opera, she's really this changed woman who has lost, and as she says, I've lost now twice, you know, the same person, and I didn't realize it, but I've lost him twice. And so there's this huge growth that you see in the character, which I'm really looking forward to playing.
Role of Christian. What does everyone think of Christian? He's beautiful, so handsome, brave, not very, very smart, not able to really woo a woman like Roxanne. And to find somebody that has a very beautiful lyric voice. We went to Spain, and that was for Jose Luis Solá. And I think he's going to be, again, ideal.
Casting for Cyrano proved to be a tougher challenge. The list of requirements was imposing.
He dominates the stage whenever he's on it, either as a swordsman, as a poet, as a, you know, when he confronts people and all that. So it had to be major personality and major vocal singing, all put together.
Marion Popp is cast in the role of Cyrano.
I know, just like anyone would know from movies, from reading about Cyrano, I know about his, how he looks like. We know that he's a great swordsman and a fearless fighter. But I love the character. I really do.
But the demanding role of Cyrano would require intensive training.
Typically, we take about 20 hours for every minute of actual fight on stage. And with Cyrano, the music's going to last about a minute. So we've got 20 hours of extra rehearsal at a minimum to get these performers ready. The swords are quite real. They're steel blades. They're swinging at a couple of 100 miles an hour. If the performers make a slip and they actually strike each other, that dull sword will rip a gash in them, just like a sharp sword would slice through them, except this will leave a nice unfixable scar instead of a nice neat cut.
Well, Marion Popp is, first of all, has so much personality. He can really deliver Cyrano. He loves, you know, fencing. He loves to be very active on stage, and he has the voice to carry not only one of the longest roles for a baritone, but also has those high notes, which for him seems to be of no consequence. And so I think he's going to be an ideal, he's so good looking. I hate to put that huge nose on him, but I'm afraid I have to do that.
It's not often that you see a rehearsal and you can almost get tears in your eyes. I think that what David has done will always be with us. I don't think this is just going to be a fly-by-night where we're going to see it this year or next year, whatever, and that's going to be it. I think, as all of the great operas, I think this will always be with us. And I'm very thrilled about that, and I'm very thrilled for David and for the house. I can't imagine it not appealing to everyone. Even if you don't like opera, the melodies that he has put in, like in the last act, you can't help but feel the music that he has done. And I think that it's going to be a very popular opera for many, many people.
The melody is wonderful. It's haunting, it's romantic, it's everything we talk about when it comes to an opera. And the person that did the libretto, Bernard, followed suit with the lyrics. And so I just experienced a wonderful thing. I can hardly wait.
It's an incredible story, and the music goes in the meaning of the story and feel like they have lived 3 hours of extraordinary emotion and basic emotion, not intellectual one, okay? Basic emotion like love and pain and just pure raw emotion for 3 hours. I think that's the most important.
One of the things that I think is really interesting about this piece in particular is that it has, from what I heard yesterday, it has tremendous show quality. From the first bars, it was the experience I had of hearing the music and then imagining the production that I know Bernard will give it within the production that I'm designing. I felt from the first moment that the audience is going to love this. As the curtain goes up, I know the audience is just going to be, wow, because it sounds so beautiful.
But there is still plenty of work to be done before the curtain rises on Cyrano for the first time.
There's rehearsal, there's musical coaching, there's going to be French coaching, there's going to be combat coaching, you know, and so there are going to be a lot of different elements and layers to the rehearsal schedule that we, you know, it's a matrix, you know, you have to really coordinate this on a daily basis and, you know, to get all of these things in because, you know, once, I mean, the hourglass is going, right?
It's a logistical nightmare getting 80 people fit in 2 weeks, especially because I want them all fit in the first week if I can. So I have a week to do the work and refit people.
You know, that's what makes opera so challenging. The very nature of it, because you're dealing with sets and costumes and scenery and, you know, the orchestra and the chorus and the supers, and that's always the big challenge, is making sure that in the evolution of the production itself, that all of the pieces are coming together and to bring a completeness. And it's what makes opera exciting, because anything can happen, not only in rehearsal, but in performance. It is fraught with potential disasters. I think time is always a great enemy when it comes to putting opera together, but particularly a new opera, because there are so many elements to work and to rehearse, and then you keep putting them together to another step and another step. So you're always fighting time. The power of music is powerful because it isn't words. It's sound that can evoke internal emotions. And when you tie it to words, then you have something that's very special. And that's what I think has been both the great mystery and the great art that opera provides for us.
To find out more about Cyrano, visit michiganopera.org. This presentation is made possible by CompuWare, the leader in IT value. This program is also made possible by Dow and by contributions to a PBS station by viewers like you. Thank you.